welcome to Natural Aesthetics. So for today's video, I'm not going to be talking about bodybuilding, I'm going to be talking about Valorant, which is Riot's new PC game, an FPS game, which has long been touted to be a direct competitor to Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and I think CSGO needs a competitor to push it along. I mean, for me, that game's dead. The casual side of the game has completely died out. Too many cheats, too many severe issues with the game itself in terms of the server quality, playability, you know, how it runs on PCs. It's just not as good as experience as you'd like it to be, and you know it could be. If there wasn't as much money being pumped into the competitive scene, that game would have died out a long time. That being said, the core mechanics of the game are fantastic. It's easy to learn, very, very difficult to master, and any good game has those two principles. I think this is going to be the same with Valorant. I'm not a fan of a lot of modern games, to be honest. I mean, Call of Duty, I don't really like their model whatsoever. I'm not saying you can't become a very skillful player by playing Call of Duty, and it rewards skill, obviously, but it certainly levels the playing field and helps to kind of give lower skill players a boost up through the upgrade branches, the perks, the way the game itself plays, the hitboxes and the movement and bullet spread, stuff like that. This is a completely different ball game. It's designed for competition and to reward good players, which is what I like. So I'll run you through the menu now. It's pretty clean, which is what I like. Not too much going on. A lot of modern games, I hate the clutteredness of the menu. There's too many things to keep tabs on. PUBG, I really hate it. It's just too many things to keep track of, and it dilutes the gameplay. Me personally, I'm not interested in it. Quake Live as well, fantastic game, but hated the menu and the way the game kind of forced you to incentivize perks and you know, upgrades and runes and stuff like that. I just could do without that, to be honest. So the settings are great. You can change a whole host of options here, which is always good because people can play with you know, weaker computers. You can even change your crosshair here. So great range of settings to try out. Runs really well as well, and that was you know, one of the biggest problems with Counter-Strike Global Offensive is the game was really not playable competitively. Anything less than 300 FPS, which is just absurd. I mean, you know, most modern games now, they run really well at 100 plus FPS. Counter-Strike just wasn't the case. It's really frustrating trying to continually boost your FPS up to get it to run as smooth as you want. This does not suffer from that whatsoever. I think the cartoony graphics obviously help with that. That's why I like it. I don't have a problem with the cartoony graphics. So we'll go to the tabs here. Latest, this is what you brought into when you first start the game. Collection, this is where you can show off your skins, which for me, not interested in whatsoever. I'm sure some people will. And you've got stickers and stuff and sprays. And these are your agents. So there are 10 agents in total. Each one has 4 abilities. So that's 40 abilities within the game. And I'm worried maybe that's a little bit too much to keep tabs on. Does it take away from the key elements of the game? It's a shooting game first and foremost. We'll have to see. I will say it's quite confusing, you know, during those first few games, but I'm sure the more you play, the more you get used to it. But you know, the main question to ask is, does it take away from core gameplay? Is it balanced? And of course, that's the reason behind the beta. They can analyse, look at the feedback, and you know, make amendments to the game. So go into play, the next tab. Really simple, really clean. I like how it looks. You just, you know, add people from your friends list, or you can play solo. You've got a career which has all your stats from previous games. Let's go to one of my games here. I've only played 4. Pretty poor game for me here. And you've got all your stats highlights there, your scoreboard, which is a whole host of statistics, timeline, which is really cool. You can see, you know, a round by round basis of how you've done, and even going through, you know, key moments during a game. You can see, you know, where certain players were, where the action is on the map. So really good for strategic analysis. Then you go to your store, which is something I'm not interested in. To be honest, I'd rather just pay for the game and then get everything else within the game for free. I'm not a fan of free-to-play games, to be honest, because they promote, I think, overspending within the game. but it certainly attracts a wider audience to begin with, helps them get their initial numbers up, and hopefully can make this game the next big thing, which might propel Counter-Strike to do something about their, their game and their dwindling interest. So we'll go into these two little bits here, which is the payment, where you can buy skins, buy stickers, and then this one, which is like Battle Pass, which I'm not really a fan of all this stuff. Like I mentioned, PUBG, I think the menu system is too complex. There are too many things going on. There's so many things going on that I just lose interest in it. I'm not particularly keen on looking through all this stuff. I just like the basic key element of settings, play, and maybe have one tab for purchasing skins, something like that. So I'll show you how it looks in game. We'll go to the practice. So the practice is really good. They've got 4 different things: open range, shooting test, spike planting, spike defuse. I mean, essentially the spike is the bomb, much the same as Counter-Strike. Very, very similar in how the game works. Counter-terrorists and then terrorists. They've just changed the wording. So I think they've made it probably more viewer-friendly, more sponsor-friendly. It's more attractive for sponsors because they aren't using those kind of keyword bomb, terrorist, counter-terrorist. There's not as much blood and gore. But I think they can probably attract a hell of a lot of money for competitions through sponsorship because of that. So we'll go to enter the range, just a regular kind of shooting test. There are different tests you can do, moving bots, just bots that kind of spawn in one place. You've got a swipe to the target, a whole range of different settings that you can try. Little turrets outside that move around. So these are your characters here. Like I said, I've only used 2 characters, so I've played this guy, I've played the lady once. I don't really know much about the abilities. I'm not going to go too much into the abilities. But essentially, the Q and C are bought. You have to buy them via credits. So just like Counter-Strike, the better you play, the more credits you get. And then E is your passive ability, and it will kind of recharge throughout the round depending on how well you do. You can also pick up kind of little orbs within the game that speed this along a little bit, or speed your ultimate power up a little bit, which is X, and this is more of a high powered ability. So as I said, there's a lot to take into account. 40 different powers here, and my fear is that maybe it's a little bit too much, a little bit too overwhelming, too much going on at the screen at the same time. How do these kind of balance in the game? But we'll see. So I just want to go over the movement and the shooting. Fantastic, they really nailed it here. The movement is very precise. When you move the keys, you move as you think you would move. There's no kind of floatiness. It's just sharp, concise movement, which is great. Very different to PUBG, for example, which is kind of floaty. Like the jumping in PUBG is horrendous. This is good. It's very, very similar to Counter-Strike. They've even got the jump crouch mechanic, which I'm very, very used to. It works great. PUBG, it takes you out of that game, takes you out of the immersion when you're climbing over ledges and stuff, or jumping. It just doesn't feel right. The POV as well is great. The gun feels like it's where it should be. The eye level is where it should be. PUBG first person mode is really lackluster in terms of POV. It's very, very much like Counter-Strike in terms of the crispness. I'd probably say it's even crisper. So they've really done well in terms of the movement mechanics, and the shooting is very much the same as well. Really, really impressive. It feels great. It's very responsive. The mouse moves as it should do. There's no kind of mouse lag whatsoever. There's no input lag whatsoever. This was one of the problems with Counter-Strike Global Offensive, is you had to play the game over 300 FPS for it to feel smooth, to play as good as you could do. And it's really frustrating dying when you're hindered by FPS performance issues, because it affects your mouse input. It really does affect your sensitivity, or it feels like it affects your sensitivity. So if you've got fluctuating FPS, it's no good, and that was one of Counter-Strike Global Offensive's biggest problem, in my opinion, is the need to run it at such high FPS, which I just couldn't work out for a game that's so old. I guess they're just pushing the engine too hard. This has it just nailed completely. So smooth. So I'll just give you a run through. So as I said, there's a few different options here in terms of practice. You can press F3 to make it easy, medium, or hard. Different bot streak, spawn, or strafe. So lots of different things to kind of practice with. So this game definitely rewards headshots. Really does. I can see the game is going to reward precision bursting, precision shooting, not necessarily one taps, because the game has tagging in it, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But you have to be really precise with your shooting. I mean, I'll change the pistol, take armour off, it is off. So some pistols are better than others. I'm pretty rusty, to be honest. I haven't really played FPS games regularly for quite some time. I've kind of got back into it with Valorant. Just lost interest in Counter-Strike. Felt like every update it would impact performance somehow. So yeah, loads of stuff you can do on here. I mean, this gun is pretty much a USP. You know, very, very similar, very precise. The bullets go where you're aiming all the time. There's no missed bullets anywhere. So yeah, really good. So at the buy menu, you've got pistols here, SMGs there, shotguns there, 4 rifles, 2 snipers and 2 heavy, light and heavy armour, and your abilities down here. As I mentioned, this one you have to buy, as same as this one. This is a passive ability, and this is your special. So I'll buy a rifle. I think this is very similar to the M4. In terms of its rate of fire, its control, its damage output. I'd say maybe it's a little bit harder to control full spray. Yeah, everything about this game is satisfying. It just feels good, and practice is rewarded. There's no gimmicks in terms of the movement of shooting, at least. In terms of the abilities, I can't really comment on that. The 4 games I had, to be honest, I actually died more often than not trying to use an ability because I felt an overwhelming need to, for the sake of it. I think that's the problem, to be honest. You kind of feel like you have to use your abilities, but I think in most cases, just guns and raw skill will probably win out. As I mentioned, the spray patterns are very similar to CS. It's, you know, drag down and then pull left and right depending on how the gun's moving. Different guns have different patterns. So we'll just give you a quick demo here at 10 meters. So this is without any control. Up, right, and then left and then right. So we'll clear that and then try and control it. I need a practice. It's not easy. It does swing quite hard to the left and right. I'd probably say a little bit more than Counter-Strike, just a tad more. So from this distance in CS it would be, you know, pretty much just a small circle. So still need to practice on that. The crosshair as well. Crosshair's fantastic. The way you can change that. Where's the settings? Oh, sorry. Can't find the settings. Well, the crosshair is, in terms of the tweaks that you can do to it, it's fantastic. Really, really good. You don't have to put in any commands like you would have to have done in CS in times gone by. So I'll show you this gun, probably equivalent to an AK. It kicks really, really hard. Super powerful. So as you can see, one tapping is super strong. this gun will kill with one bullet in the head with the heavy armour. You see I'm just counter-strafing. Now the problem with tapping, and I mentioned this earlier, is the tagging. Tagging is a real kind of strong element in this game, and if you get hit, you'll be unable to move quickly. It's really hard to kind of manoeuvre. So you're forced to, when you see a target, to be as precise as possible and deliver, you know, 2 to 3, maybe 4 bullets right on that target, right on the head. If you tap and counter strafe, then what can happen sometimes is if that player shoots me as I strafe, my strafe will be cut short. And because I'm aiming on the counter strafes mostly with my keyboard, the crosshair will be misaligned and I have to adjust. So tapping on games that have tagging in is quite hard to master. I think it really needs to be practiced a lot. You can't really afford to miss shots because of the tagging. Once they turn around and start spraying you, you're just stuck in position. You're trying to counter strafe, it's game over. So best to you know, like a precise burst right on the head to the chest, and then probably best to go down to a full auto spray if you miss that initial 1 or 2 bullets. Of course you need to learn the patterns to be able to do that. So there's a lot of scope here, a lot of different styles of play. So most of the guns as well will have an alternate firing mode. For a lot of the rifles it slows down bullets per second, generally makes the gun a little bit more precise, and just zooms in a bit. I think it's like 1.25 or 1.5 times your usual POV. And it just makes it a little bit easier to control, but at the cost of bullet velocity, or bullet frequency I should say. So you're kind of going to weigh up really. Some of the SMGs will shoot bursts out as well, some of the rifles to be in fact. So it's generally going to be a slightly more zoomed in POV, burst, or slower, more precise bullet control. Whether or not some of these alternate firing modes will be made redundant will remain to be seen, I guess. We'll have to see. I fear that some of them will just be unused and they'll be kind of phased out or tweaked somewhat during the next few months. But I think it adds an interesting element and layer to the intricacies of the game. Overall, it's really enjoyable. I'm having a blast playing it, I have to say. So I played 4 games, haven't played particularly well in all of them, in any of them to be honest. So there's an area out here you can practice with, you know, targets and move. I mean, from the offset, they're clearly aiming the game at the competitive market. I mean, games like PUBG, for example, took ages for it to have a training mode. I mean, it's ridiculous. Counter-Strike relied on mappers to produce, you know, aim maps for the game, whereas this straight away, as it's released, even in beta, it's got the tools available to be able to practice a game and you know, hone your skills on it. So really good, and you can practice your abilities on this as well. Really good fun, and my only worry about the game so far is how the abilities affect the core mechanics of the game, because at heart it's a shooting game. Everything has been done right in terms of the movement and shooting. It's whether the abilities kind of mix with that and gel with that in a positive way. Does it help gameplay or does it hinder it? So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up.